Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to live coverage of the Governor's annual State of the Commonwealth address from the state capitol here in Richmond, Virginia. I'm Craig Carper, News Director of WCVE Public Radio. Thank you for joining us this evening. This live coverage comes to you from WCVE Public Television in Richmond. Greetings to those of you as well who may be joining us from WHTJ Public Television in Charlottesville or other networks throughout the state. Following Governor McAuliffe's remarks, we will go to the Republican response delivered by Republican Delegate Rob Bell of Albemarle and Senator Frank Ruff of Clarksville. All of that coming up within the next hour from your local public television station. We thank you for joining us. Over the next hour, the governor will lay out his legislative priorities for the 60-day session of the General Assembly. He's sure to once again make the case for his two-year budget. This will be his legacy budget, the only one he can truly claim full credit for. Within that are over $1 billion in investments in public education. Stay tuned in just a moment. Jay Pearson, the Sergeant of Arms at the House of Delegates, will announce Governor Terry McAuliffe.
Joint Assembly will come to order. Sergeant at Arms.
President, His Excellency, the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Members will receive the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Thank you. And Paul, you're working there? Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Look at you guys all together there. Look at that. Let's keep it going for 60 days.
As Speaker of the House of Delegates and President of the Joint Assembly, it is my pleasure to present to you His Excellency, the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the Honorable Terrence R. McAuliffe.
Come on, man, get up. Thank you. What is that? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Is Virginia not the greatest state in America? Lieutenant Governor Northam, Attorney General Herring, Speaker Howell, Leader Norman, men and women of the General Assembly, distinguished guests, citizens of Virginia, thank you for inviting me here tonight. A special thanks to my wife, Dorothy, for all that she is doing every day for Virginia's children and her families. I married well. I also want to take a moment to thank the 575 brave Virginians in the National Guard who tonight are away from their families, deployed in the UAE, Cuba, and Kuwait, and elsewhere around the globe, and thank them for everything they do to keep us safe. And tonight they are represented by our TAG Major General Tim Williams, who's with us here tonight. And finally, I welcome the new members of the General Assembly as you begin your legislative session. I look forward to working with all of you. When I stood before you 1 year ago, as you know, we were preparing to close a $2.4 billion budget shortfall. We were coping with the drag that federal cuts were placing on our economy and bracing for the potential of tougher, more sequestration cuts. And as you know, I was speaking to the pain of 7 broken ribs and a punctured lung. This evening, I'm happy to tell you that things are looking up. Our work to build a new Virginia economy is paying off. We can breathe more freely thanks to a period of relative calm in Washington. And I'm happy to say that 5 of my ribs are now healed, and I am certainly breathing easier than I did last year. Secretary Rick Brown often says that Virginia's leaders are on their best behavior in a budget crisis, and he has seen a few. We proved his point last year. When our finances turned ugly, we went to work. We toughed it out, protecting our schools from cuts and keeping our economic development plans on track. As you know, we did not agree on everything, but we put partisan battles aside to get the job done. Since then, I have seen many of you at groundbreaking ceremonies for new businesses and factory expansions all across the Commonwealth. Each time, I handed you a shovel and said, let's get to work. This evening, let us get those shovels out again and continue working together so that our futures can improve for every Virginia resident. Last year, we worked to protect and expand our investments in priorities that contribute directly to our goal of a stronger economy. We also agreed on the need to reform programs that were failing. Those principles should continue to guide our work through this year. I have introduced a budget that is structurally and fiscally sound. We must maintain that balanced budget while making strategic investments. Even as our economy improves and our revenue increases, our responsibility to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars remains the same. And so does the significant power that we in this room have to make a real difference in the lives of the people who sent us here to represent them. We can change lives by giving the high school student who is uncertain about his future the training that he needs to get a great job in cybersecurity. We can change lives by helping the small business owner make the connections that she needs to sell customers in China, India, and Cuba. And speaking of Cuba, Mr. President, or Mr. Speaker, I have a present for you. Now there's a few more where those came from, if you know what I'm saying. We'll negotiate that later in the session. Well, we can change lives by giving a mom with diabetes the medical care that she needs to stay healthy and to be there for her children. Those positive changes are at the very heart of the work that we have undertaken together to build a new Virginia economy so that all citizens have the opportunity to maximize their God-given potential. Henry Ford once said, "It has been my observation that most people get ahead during the time that others waste." I know from my own career in business that you cannot take opportunities for granted. If you pass one up, you may not get another chance. The same is true for leading this great Commonwealth. The reprieve that we have received from sequestration cuts is our chance to lay a solid foundation for the type of economy that we will need when those cuts return in full force in 2 short years. If we work together over the next 60 days, we can expand economic opportunity to Virginians in every corner of the Commonwealth, from every walk of life, and we can show the world yet again that here in Virginia, we do not back down from a challenge. We do not let petty partisan squabbles stand in the way of progress that our families deserve. Tonight, I am here to tell you that the state of our Commonwealth is strong. And by working together for the next 60 days, we can make it even stronger. And so this evening, that is the vision that defines my message to you. Let us work together to get things done. Let's work together to create jobs and build a new Virginia economy. Let's work together to transform our education and workforce development systems to meet the demands of our future. Let's work together to make Virginia more attractive to businesses and trading partners all over the globe. Let's work together to make a real difference in the lives of the friends and neighbors that we came here to serve. Just look back at what we've accomplished together as a Commonwealth over the last 2 years and reflect on the lives that we have changed along the way, one Virginian at a time, day after day. 88,400 new jobs created, 1,523 veterans with a safe, warm place to call home, 100,000 students. 100,000 students now attending schools that offer free meals to all their children, and more than 37,000 individuals receiving workforce credentials last year alone. I started this job convinced that all of the Commonwealth's challenges trace back to one essential solution: building a new Virginia economy. One that is diverse, sustainable, and offers new opportunities for everyone. And the progress that we are making together is a clear indication that we are on the right path to meeting those challenges and the beginning of a new chapter of opportunity and prosperity. Think about our accomplishments over the last 2 years. Just think for a second. 561 new economic development projects, a record $9.27 billion in new capital investment. The lowest unemployment rate of any state in the southeast of the United States of America. An increase in the average weekly wage from $878 to $941. And now, more than 3,848,000 60,000 jobs in Virginia, the largest number in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Our state revenues are growing stronger every single day in everything from personal income tax, sales tax, to housing sales. And I want you to know that I did buy a Powerball ticket. So when I win later tonight, we're going to see a $40 million increase into our general fund. As we've grown our economy overall, we've also sharpened our competitive edge in high-growth industries like cybersecurity and biolife sciences. Last month, Virginia beat out 46 other states for a new Air Force Cyber Operations Squadron to be located at Langley Air Force Base. And tomorrow, I will be in Northern Virginia to cut the ribbon on Visa's new state-of-the-art Cyber Fusion Center. This will lead the country in threat detection and command and control operations for the world's largest payment network. And I'm proud to say that Virginia beat out Colorado and Texas for that honor. Here in Virginia, we've also steadily accelerated our push to increase exports of all Virginia products and services to global markets everywhere. Why? Because 95% of the world's customers live outside the United States of America. And 81% of all global economic growth will occur outside the U.S. between now and 2020. We have visited those markets personally, opening up India to Virginia-grown apples for the first time in our history. And we've worked to lift the bans on poultry in Oman and Kuwait. And just this week, we received our first order ever for 2 containers of poultry that will be shipped to Oman. And last week, we traveled to Cuba, and I'm proud that we were able to forge a deal between Virginia's port and the new billion-dollar port of Mariel. We've also assisted 692 Virginia companies eager to tap international markets through our trade programs. And 182 of those businesses have traveled overseas to make personal connections with new customers and new opportunities. With us tonight is Vanessa Christie, Vice President of the Virginia-based company Prevalence, with more than 100 employees. Vanessa is a United States Navy combat veteran who spent the majority of her active duty flying and instructing the F-14 Tomcat. Her company has historically provided engineering and flight service training to the Pentagon and NATO. But now, she is moving into international markets. In the first year of participation in our valet program, Vanessa has joined our trade missions to the UK, Canada, and Mexico, and she has already 6 return business trips scheduled to these international markets this year. This is a defense contractor who is diversifying and creating jobs for Virginians. I want to thank Vanessa for being here tonight, thank her for what she's doing to grow jobs here in Virginia, and most importantly, thank her for her service to our great country. F-14 Tomcat. We've also worked together to strengthen Virginia's agriculture exports. Last year, we exported a record $3.35 billion in ag products, which moved us up to the number 2 spot on the East Coast, leapfrogging North Carolina and putting Georgia squarely in our sights to move ahead to meet my goal of making Virginia the number 1 ag exporting port on the entire East Coast. Our successes in global trade are at the center of the important work that we are doing to build the new economy, and they are a clear example of the benefits that happen when we all work together. I want to thank the support of Delegate Landis and Senator Emmett Hanger for all the great work that they have done on economic development funding for us, such as Steve, I hope I didn't hurt you in the caucus, but it is what. There's another career gone. But the great work that we've done together working on AFIT grants gives us the opportunity and the tools we need to open up new markets and businesses to make sure that we can reach producers all over the Commonwealth. I'm pleased to see that there is a bipartisan backing of the $38.9 million in our budget to partner with Go Virginia as it fosters regional collaboration among businesses, government, and education leaders to help us achieve our shared economic goals. These are not partisan successes. These are Virginia's successes. And I believe, folks, that we are just warming up. As we ship Virginia products to trade partners all over the globe, we are also making great progress in strengthening our energy economy and diversifying our fuel mix here at home. As you know, we recently announced a historic 80-megawatt solar facility that will power Amazon Web Services data centers in Northern Virginia. This will be the largest solar facility in the Mid-Atlantic and the second largest on the entire East Coast. It will more than quadruple the amount of solar currently installed in the Commonwealth. We are also doing our part to power up the solar industry in Virginia with our goal to purchase 8% of the electricity needed to run state government from solar generation within the next 3 years. Friends, that is a 100-fold increase in solar capacity here in Virginia. We will make Virginia more energy independent and stimulate economic growth by expanding our use of renewable energy. Recently, we met with the leaders of Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, and they made it perfectly clear to me that they will only do business and create jobs in states that can provide them with renewable power to generate their operations. Renewable also offers an opportunity in many of our rural communities to rebuild our manufacturing sector so that every single solar panel or wind turbine that we install has a big stamp on it, made in Virginia. I'm proud of what we've achieved working together the past 2 years to build our economy, and the budget that I presented to you in December takes even more aggressive steps to build on our momentum. According to an analysis by Tremora Economics and Analytics, our $2.43 billion bond package alone will be a major boost to our economy. $3.5 billion in economic impact through 2021 from construction expenditures. More than 19,000 new jobs, primarily in construction and related industries, and the largest capital investment in research in our history, with an emphasis on emerging sectors like bioscience. Nearly $850 million in bonds are designated for our four-year universities and $214 million for our community colleges to strengthen and expand STEM and workforce programs. In addition to significant capital investments in research and development, the two-year budget before you provides more than $1 billion in new funds all across all levels of education. Thank you. We have proposed a significant infusion of resources into our public schools, including $139 million to fund 2,500 additional instructional positions. We will take Virginia's investment in public education to $6.8 billion in fiscal year 18, the largest level in the Commonwealth's history. Now, this does not mean that we should invest tax dollars in education just for the sake of it. We should invest in smart, innovative programs that get results for the students, the communities, and the businesses that we serve. We have already made a great start. Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam and his team worked closely with us to win a $17.5 million annual grant from the United States Department of Education to provide high-quality pre-kindergarten classes for 13,000 children. We began reforming our standards of learning by eliminating 5 SOL tests. We made the testing process better without watering down the high standards that we set for our schools and we set for our students. My team worked closely with leaders in this room like Senator John Miller and Delegate Tad Greason to oversee these important reforms, and the results speak for themselves. Listen to this. 5-point gains in reading and math pass rates, improvements in writing, science, and history, a 7-point increase in math pass rates among African American students, and a 6-point gain in reading. And today, 1,414 of our public schools are now fully accredited, a 10-point increase from the prior year. So now is not the time to let up. Let us use these 60 days to strengthen our investment in education, further our reforms of our standard of learning, and make every single Virginia classroom a place where students are being prepared to lead in the 21st century. I can usually count on Lionel. We can start by using new technologies to evaluate student learning without subjecting them to 6-hour SOL tests. I know every member of the General Assembly has heard from parents about third graders having to take 6-hour tests. If we work together to provide the necessary resources, by the spring of 2017, we can reduce the time most Virginia students spend taking SOL tests to less than 2 hours through computer adaptive testing. As important as it is to reduce and to shorten tests, it is just a small piece of the work that we must do to build the education system that we need to lead in a global economy. Virginia students hold the key to innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic growth. What we put into our schools today will be what we get out of our economy 10, 20, and 50 years from today. You cannot build an economy for 2050 with a 1950s approach to education. So this year, I have proposed legislation to begin a fundamental change in Virginia's approach to high school education. We will put greater emphasis on hands-on learning, internships, early college courses, industry credentials, rather than classroom seat time. Our high schools were designed during the Industrial Revolution to prepare workers with the basic information and skills needed for the jobs of that day and time. This is a particularly urgent matter for more than 2 million Virginians living in rural regions. As Governor Jerry Baliles has noted in his work on the Rural Virginia Horseshoe Initiative, 21%, or more than 400,000 rural residents, have less than a high school diploma. Our educators are eager to create the schools of the future, and they are already starting. Here in the Richmond area, a new code RVA school is opening up next fall that will prepare students to learn code writing. Students will obtain a high school diploma in 2 years and get a community college 2-year degree while working in real computer science jobs. The students who graduate from this school, let me be very clear, will not have any trouble finding a job. And to all the parents who are watching tonight, right now, we have 17,000 cyber jobs open, and the average starting pay is $88,000. For those of you old enough to remember the movie The Graduate, the key word was plastics. Well, folks, today it's cyber. These new high schools that we are designing will benefit students like James DeLoche, an 8th grader in Goochland County who is already a skilled coder and has even designed an award-winning app already. So, folks, our future. Let us welcome James, who is here to represent all the future code writers here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We thank James for being with us tonight. Isn't he adorable? Yeah. Pretty good. If we're going to prepare students for the jobs of today and create the jobs of tomorrow, we must fundamentally change the way we think about education. That innovative approach should even extend to the services that we offer to students who face unique challenges, like military-dependent children, transitioning to new lives here in the Commonwealth. We passed legislation last year to ensure that our schools are doing everything they can to support the concerns of children of our active duty military families as they transition in and out of our public school system. I do want to thank the First Lady once again for her leadership on this issue. And as we take a new approach to public education, we cannot ignore the fundamental problem that far too many students, 1 in 6 in fact, lack the basic nutrition they need to fulfill their potential. I am proud of the progress that we have made on this important issue. I want to thank the First Lady once again for her tremendous outreach and advocacy, because today 100,000 Virginia students in 26 school divisions are now benefiting from the community eligibility provision, which allows schools to provide meals at no cost to the students or their families. Across the nation, school participation in this new federal program expanded by 20%. Here in Virginia, we knocked it out of the park. We expanded by 139%. We worked together last year to include funding in the budget to support school breakfast programs across Virginia, ensuring that all children start the day ready to learn. Those dollars today are helping 244 schools expand their breakfast programs. But we had an additional 310 schools seek funding that we were not able to support. I want to recognize a special guest who's also here with us tonight. Amanda Warren is the supervisor of school nutrition programs at Stanton City Public Schools. Out of 4 schools that applied that she was working with, 2 were approved to receive additional support for school breakfast. At Bessie Weller Elementary School, Amanda has been able to increase breakfast participation among her students from 33% to 91%. Could you imagine what she could have done if we had funding for all 4 schools? That is why the budget before you doubles the funding to $2 million so that we can continue our work getting every student the basic nutrition that he or she needs to succeed in the classroom. I want to thank you, Amanda, for being here tonight and taking the leadership on this issue. A strong K-12 system in which every student has access to a world-class education is essential to building the new Virginia economy, but we cannot stop there. The budget that we will work on together also contains funding to make our higher education system more accessible to all students and to better prepare those students for the economy of the future. In this budget that you have in front of you, we invest more than $48 million new dollars to financial aid for higher education over the next 2 years, more than $50 million in incentives for colleges and universities to increase the number of students receiving degrees, and almost $25 million for Virginia's community colleges to produce more industry certifications and occupational licenses. I believe, thank you. I believe that education is a prime example of the opportunity that we have this session to work together to strengthen our economy and to make our state a better place to live. We all agree that is what Virginians sent us here to do. That is why I remain optimistic. If we can sit down at the table together in goodwill, we can find a way forward on the important issue of Medicaid expansion. Let's just look at the numbers. Each day that we do not close the coverage gap, each day, we forfeit $6.6 million in federal money. Every single month, we waste $15 million in costs to state taxpayers that could be covered entirely with federal funds. Just yesterday, as you know, Louisiana became the 31st state to expand coverage along with the District of Columbia. Must have some relatives in Louisiana. They are now reaping economic, budgetary, and quality of life benefits that we continue to leave on the table. Just this past week, I met with Governor Herbert, the chairman of the National Governors Association. He is pushing to expand coverage in the conservative state of Utah. He is at least the third conservative Republican governor who has asked me with surprise, why is it that you wouldn't bring your own money back home to get health care for your citizens? I am truly convinced that we can find a bipartisan Virginia solution that totally protects our Commonwealth's finances while taking advantage of this historic opportunity to make our state a better place to live. I ask you, please review the details of our plan with an open mind. And please work with me to reach a solution that will benefit our constituents, our hospitals, and our communities. As I have always said, my door is always open, and history is on our side. We have come together over and over again on many important issues, including support for our veterans. Our Virginia Values Veterans Program has helped to connect more than 13,000 veterans with companies eager to hire them. By 2018, we will reach our goal to help 20,000 veterans find jobs and keep them and their skills here in the Commonwealth. In addition, in partnership with Senator Louise Lucas and Leader Kirk Cox, we have also secured funding for 2 new veteran care centers in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads. This is not a funny issue. This is a serious issue because the VA is not doing their job for the veterans, and if the federal government's not going to do it, we're going to do it here in Virginia. And let me say something else we should be very proud of. Virginia was the first and the only state so far to be certified in the nation to functionally end veteran homelessness in our state. Anthony Harris is here with us this evening on behalf of the hundreds of volunteers and professionals who work so hard to achieve this goal. Anthony is a Portsmouth native who served with distinction in the U.S. Army and now works at the Virginia Supportive Housing. He spent months working with one particular veteran who was living in a tent in Virginia Beach. I am happy to tell you that Anthony was able to find this man a home by Thanksgiving. This is not a one-time accomplishment. Virginia is committed to making sure that veteran homelessness is rare, brief, and a non-recurring experience from this day forward. We have put in place a community-based response and service system for identifying these individuals and quickly meeting their needs. I feel good knowing that whenever a veteran faces a crisis in the future, that he or she can be assured that people like Anthony will be there to help them. These folks served our nation, and it's up to us now to serve them. Let us give a great round of applause to thank Anthony and their entire team for the great work that they have done. Together, we can expand on these accomplishments and make meaningful investments that strengthens Virginia's position as the most veteran-friendly state in the United States of America. When we came into office promising to transform government and to put our taxpayers first, our transportation team had a good idea that they were going to be busy, and they were right. We've turned around the port, generating $13.6 million in profits last year. The first time in 7 years that this vital economic asset wasn't floundering in a sea of red. On the Midtown-Downtown Tunnel project, we eased the toll burden for low-income motorists and eliminated the tolls entirely for the Martin Luther King Expressway. You're welcome, Louise. On 460, we canceled that project, and we negotiated a settlement that saved our taxpayers $149 million. We have also made great progress in unlocking Northern Virginia from the congestion that keeps this dynamic region from reaching its full potential. We're adding new lanes to Interstate 66, which will allow 70,000 more people to move through that corridor each and every day, and we are finally putting an end to the wheel spinning that has kept this much-needed project from moving forward. Now, I know there's been a lot of misleading information about this issue, but the facts are clear. After years and years of inaction, commuters will now have options that will ease congestion without imposing new tolls on drivers for getting to work the same way that they always have. And it's just one of the steps that we've taken to unlock the Northern Virginia region. We're making life better for commuters by extending the 395 hot lanes north all the way to the district line, extending the southbound lanes 2 miles to clear up backups in Stafford County, and continuing to support the Silver Line all the way to Dulles and other parts of Loudoun County. Together, these projects will strengthen the economy of this key region in the entire Commonwealth. We have also partnered to strengthen our pension benefits for the long term. Thanks to the bipartisan cooperation, thousands of public servants can rest assured that their retirement benefits are on firm footing. I know that this is an issue that is always on the minds of Speaker Howell and Chairman Chris Jones. Indeed, the Speaker has proposed the creation of a commission to explore the future of the Virginia retirement system, and I hope that the funds that I have in my budget can be a starting point, moving us toward a stable and sustainable program. As a first step, I hope that we will work together to fully fund our pension contribution rates by the end of the coming biennium, which will be 2 years ahead of schedule. We are all equally committed to supporting our current state workers. I am proud to be their boss, and I was proud to include pay raises in my budget for our state employees, our troopers, college faculty and staff, teachers and school personnel, deputies, and other state-supported workers. These men and women work hard to make Virginia the best place to live on earth and best place to start a business. And you know what? They deserve a raise. As you know, it took a lot of hard work to reach agreement on ethics reform last year, but we got it done. And now the ban on gifts exceeding $100 has taken effect. Our constituents can feel more confident that we are acting in their best interests. To build on this important work, we are proposing campaign finance reforms that would prohibit legislators from fundraising during the veto session and special sessions. As I did with the gift ban, I will lead by example and introduce legislation that would ban fundraising by governors during the period when they are reviewing bills for approval or veto. And finally, we are introducing legislation to prohibit the personal use of campaign funds. These are significant steps that we can take together to send a clear message to Virginians that we are using the offices that they have entrusted to us for one purpose and one purpose alone, making their lives better. Transparency and accountability are key to keeping elected officials connected with the people with whom we serve. And so is ensuring that every Virginian who is qualified to vote has the opportunity to do so as soon as possible. Some of the most meaningful moments in my 2 years as governor have been the times when I have restored the civil rights of men and women, many of whom have struggled for years to reach that goal. We have knocked down barrier after barrier, reduced the waiting time period, shortened the application form, eliminated fees, and spread the word that we welcome you and we want you to succeed. Secretary LeVar Stoney and his team have done an amazing job, and I'm proud to announce tonight that a record 16,000 Virginians have now had their rights restored. Not that we're counting, but this is more than the last 3 governors combined over their full 4-year terms, and we are just warming up. I would like to invite all 16,000 of them to be here this evening, but that would be like the equivalent of inviting the entire city of Williamsburg. But Bobby Blevins is here tonight to represent them all. Bobby lost his rights more than 6 decades ago when he was just a teenager. I met Bobby shortly after his 79th birthday and had the honor of personally restoring his rights. He was in tears when he told me that he had felt like half a citizen for all those years. But on that day, he became a full citizen, and guess what? On Election Day, Bobby Blevins went to the polls and voted for the first time in his life. I thank you, Bobby, for being here with us tonight. We also need to reach out to young people and quickly get them back on the right path when they commit a crime. Our old juvenile justice model was a failure. We spend about $186,000 on each juvenile who ends up in a Virginia correctional institution. And you know what? Almost 80% are rearrested within 3 years of release. To me, that is a waste of money. That's why our Department of Juvenile Justice is taking a new approach that emphasizes treatment, education, and preparation for a productive life outside the criminal justice system. We've already reduced the population in our juvenile correctional facilities from 600 to 350. Our budget builds on our success with a plan that will invest savings in diversion and community-based services. I know that some of the young people in the system have committed serious offenses, but I also know that they are capable of great achievements. On the Friday before Christmas, a group of young men from the Beaumont Juvenile Correction Facility came to the Executive Mansion to present Dorothy and me with a beautiful quilt that they had designed and created under the direction of their teacher, Roy Mitchell. That quilt, which required almost a year of work, is now on display in the Patrick Henry Building. And Roy is here as my guest. I want to thank Roy and his entire team who are thinking out of the box and for helping so many young people to learn valuable skills and view the promise of their lives in terms of classrooms and boardrooms, not courtrooms and jailhouses. Anthony, thank you for being here, Roy. On Friday, 73 new troopers and 1 special agent graduated in Virginia's 123rd class at the State Police Basic Academy. We depend on these men and women to be there in a crisis, and they depend on us to provide them with the adequate resources and to establish common sense policies in support of public safety. That is why I stood with the leaders of the Virginia State Police, sheriffs, and police chiefs to announce our Executive Order 50, designed to better enforce gun laws that are already on the books. And I'm pleased that Attorney General Mark Herring and Secretary Brian Moran are chairing our Joint Strike Force to prosecute gun crimes. It is my hope that we can work together on reasonable solutions so we can save lives. Thank you, sir. We should be proud of what we've accomplished and ready to meet the challenges that we all face together. When I travel around the Commonwealth to the factory floors, the classroom, the Chamber of Commerce breakfasts, I find that Virginians are practical, honest people who want their government to focus on the essential duties and to perform them well. They want quality schools, good roads, reasonable taxes, a meaningful safety net, and sound economic policies that will stand the test of time for their children and their grandchildren. You will see their influence on every page of our budget and in every bill that we will introduce this winter. Our ideas and proposals are not partisan, nor should they be controversial. I do not expect that you will accept every single one of them, but I am optimistic that our work will be defined more by cooperation than by conflict. I hope that that same approach will be reflected in the bills that you send me for consideration as the session progresses. I am ready to work with you on all of your proposals to grow our economy, expand opportunity, make our government work better, and take better care of our taxpayer dollars. But I will not hesitate to veto legislation that I believe harms those important goals. Specifically, I am prepared to veto bills that roll back the progress that we have made on marriage equality and a woman's access to health care. I will also reject proposal that limit this Commonwealth's ability to keep Virginians safe from gun violence or to react to the very clear and present danger of climate change and sea level rise. Even more important, I do hope that we will treat our newest Supreme Court justice with the respect that she deserves as a jurist who has served our Commonwealth with honor for 22 years. Allowing politics to deny this qualified and distinguished jurist a full 12-year term would send a dangerous message about the Commonwealth's respect for the independence of the judicial branch. It is my hope that our work together this session will be devoted to productive areas where there's room for compromise, not for political sideshows that distract us from the matters that demand our urgent attention. So let us resolve this evening to spend as much of this important session as we can laying a solid foundation for the new Virginia economy that our families deserve. If we are to reach that goal, each of us has an important job to do. We must stay focused on our long-term goals. We must demand more of ourselves and each other. And we must always remember why we were elected to office in the first place. On this first day of legislative session, we will face a crucial decision that will guide us for the next 60 days. I ask you to make a commitment this evening to find a way. Find a way to bulldoze through barriers and move Virginia's economy forward. Find a way to provide all Virginians with the education and the training that they need for a good job. Find a way to build the critical infrastructure to sustain our momentum. Find a way to change lives for the better. Right now, at this moment, we can make the right choice and take the next step forward. Together, let's get to work. Thank you, and God bless the greatest state and the greatest nation on earth. Thank you very much.
You're watching live coverage of Governor Terry McAuliffe's State of the Commonwealth address from the state capitol in Richmond. The governor discussed his term at the midpoint and laid out his legislative priorities for the 2016 General Assembly session, which began today. We're about to go to the Republican response that's brought to you by Delegate Rob Bell of Albemarle and Senator Frank Ruff of Clarksville. During his remarks, the governor discussed the need to invest in K-12 public education, higher ed, as well as transportation infrastructure projects. He discussed He made a brief pitch for Medicaid expansion, though the Republicans are unlikely to agree and expand Medicaid during this session. That has not been a popular topic with them in previous sessions. Here now is the response.
Those in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion is agreed to. The senator from Roanoke, Senator Sutherland.
Mr. President, I move that the Joint Assembly now adjourn sine die.
As many as favor the motion to adjourn sine die will say aye. Those opposed, no.
His budget to the General Assembly last month. Between now and March 12th, the delegates and senators you elected to represent you will consider the governor's proposals and more than 2,000 bills and resolutions submitted by legislators. As a member of one of the two legislative committees that will consider the governor's proposed budget, I know we will find common ground with him on efforts to increase funding for our public schools, for mental health care, for public safety, and for our veterans. We are committed to ensuring students who attend our public schools receive a quality education. And we will strive to provide the funds necessary to attract and retain the best teachers. To better prepare our workforce for the demands of a rapidly changing economy, the budget we approve will include initiatives to encourage more Virginians to complete educational programs that lead to certification in high-demand jobs. By investing in workforce training targeted to growing industries, we can make Virginia even more attractive to employers. One area where we will not be in agreement with Governor McAuliffe is Obamacare. While the governor's budget again includes the federal program's Medicaid expansion scheme, we believe this initiative threatens critically important funding priorities like education. Even without the optional federal expansion, mandated spending on Medicaid will take an even higher share of state spending in the new budget. Expanding the program would not be prudent and would only increase the funding pressure on other state core services. Although the governor's initiative to join this optional feature of Obamacare will not be part of the new budget, there will not be a legislative impasse or standoff as there was 2 years ago. By voting for a Republican majority General Assembly, Virginians ensured that the lengthy budget standoff of 2014 would not be repeated. We take the responsibility of completing our work on schedule very seriously, and the General Assembly will be adjourning on or before March 12th. Rob?
So last year, the General Assembly completed its work ahead of schedule. We passed a budget that Governor McAuliffe signed without amendment. We continued our work to keep Virginia a good place to open or grow a business, and we further strengthened our ethics and transparency laws for Virginia's elected officials. We understand that there will often be principled disagreements over policies and priorities, and we're always open to discussing what's best for Virginia. However, we've been disappointed by recent unilateral actions by the current administration. Our system of government is founded on the constitutional principles of a separation of powers. As has become all too common in Washington, here in Richmond we have seen Governor McAuliffe and Attorney General Herring use executive actions and appointments to circumvent these constitutional limitations and undermine the balance envisioned by our founders. Now, only 10 weeks ago, every Virginia legislator stood for election. And despite unprecedented efforts by outside groups, Virginians returned a Republican majority to the House and Senate. We intend to represent our constituents who just voted us into office. We will use our majority in the House and Senate to fight for fiscal responsibility and against the governor's unsustainable Obamacare Medicaid expansion. We will oppose job-killing proposals, whether they come from the governor or federal overreach out of Washington. We will stand up for the constitutional rights of Virginians, including their Second Amendment rights. And we will carefully review any appointment that was made by the governor to ensure that it meets the Constitution's requirements. During this session, we will be adhering to the Constitution of Virginia and will be working to ensure that the will of the voters is respected. Now, your vote matters, and your voices will be heard through us, the people you've chosen to represent you here at the Capitol. So on behalf of our Republican colleagues in the House and the Senate, Senator Ruff and I wish you a happy, prosperous, and safe new year, and we thank you for watching this evening. Good night.
This concludes our broadcast tonight of Governor Terry McAuliffe's State of the Commonwealth address. Thanks for joining us, and thank you to our crew who made tonight's broadcast possible. We hope you've enjoyed watching on WCVE Public Television in Richmond and WHTJ Public Television in Charlottesville. I'm Craig Carper. Thank you, and good night.